Okay, so this is the Daf Yomi for Thursday, April 10th, 2025. We're starting a new Masechet. We are in Masechet Makkot. So Makkot is an extension, it seems to be an extension of Sanhedrin. It is, so it means like the floggings, right? The lashes that are as punishment. But it's also apropos because Pesach starts this weekend, and we have the recitation of what happened to the Exodus from Egypt, but we have the idea of the Makkot, the 10 plagues, right? And the plagues are considered like the blows upon the Egyptians or the Egyptian gods. So those two things are connected, and it is apropos. So just to get started here, we're starting Parak Aleph for the Mishnah, right? But we're on Daf 2. So each Masechet starts on Daf 2. It does not have a Daf 1. This is one of the shortest Masechets in the Talmud. So I think there's 20 some dapim. So anyway, let's get started. The Mishnah says, how are witnesses rendered conspiring witnesses? This applies in a case where two witnesses came before the court and said, we testify with regard to so-and-so, who was a priest, that he is the son of a divorced woman or the son of a halutza, a yavama, who performed the rite of halitza to free herself from the levirate bond. Those testimonies render him halal. See Leviticus 21, 6-7. One disqualified from the priesthood due to flawed lineage. If a second set of witnesses testifies in court and renders the first set conspiring witnesses, one does not say with regard to each of the conspiring witnesses, this witness shall be rendered the son of a divorced woman or the son of a halutza in his stead. Rather, he receives 40 lashes as punishment for his false testimony. Likewise, in a case where two witnesses came before the court and said, we testify with regard to so-and-so that he is liable to be exiled to a city of refuge for unwittingly killing another. Numbers 35:11. And a second set of witnesses testifies in court and renders the first set of conspiring witnesses. One does not say with regard to each of the conspiring witnesses, this witness shall be exiled in his stead. Rather, he receives 40 lashes. Let's see here. The Gemara analyzes so we're in the Gemara now. The Gemara analyzes the opening question of the Mishnah. So it says, but based on the cases discussed in the Mishnah, the Tana should have asked, how are witnesses not rendered conspiring witnesses? The standard punishment for conspiring witnesses is the punishment that they conspired to have inflicted upon the subject of their testimony. So if you conspired to get somebody in trouble for something, their punishment comes on you. So the Mishnah cites anomalous cases where their punishment does not correspond to the punishment they sought to have inflicted. The Gemara asks, and furthermore, from the fact that the Tana teaches in a Mishnah cited later, 5a, that if the second set of witnesses attempting to render the first set conspiring witnesses said to them, how can you testify to that incident when on that day you were with us in such and such a place? These first witnesses are conspiring witnesses. One learns by inference from the final phase in the cited passage, these are conspiring witnesses, that those enumerated in the Mishnah here are not conspiring witnesses. The Gemara answers both questions. The Tana is standing there in his studies at the end of Tractate Sanhedrin, which immediately precedes Makkot, and Makkot is often appended to the end of Sanhedrin. The Mishnah there teaches in 89a, Sanhedrin 89a, all those who are rendered conspiring witnesses are led to be executed with the same mode of execution with which they conspired to have their victim executed, except for conspiring witnesses who testified that the daughter of a priest and her paramour committed adultery, or the daughter of the priest would be executed by burning, Leviticus 21:9. And her paramour would be executed by strangulation. In that case, they are not taken directly to be executed in the same mode of execution that they sought to have inflicted on the woman. Rather, they are executed with a different mode of execution, the one they sought to have inflicted on the paramour. And it's interesting in a case like that because that person would be, if the witnesses were accepted, that person in his entire lineage throughout history would be disqualified from the priesthood. So, and this is something that comes up. But, so you're not only inflicting a judgment upon that person, you're inflicting a judgment upon their entire lineage, their entire generations, to eternity, whatever you want to say. So therefore, the Tana continues in this first Mishnah in Makkos, and there are other conspiring witnesses with regard to whom the court does not apply the halachot governing the punishment in standard cases of conspiring testimony at all, and they do not receive punishment they sought to have inflicted, rather they receive 40 lashes. How and what cases is this applied? This is applied in a case where two witnesses came before the court and said, we testify with regard to so-and-so that he is the son of a divorced woman or the son of a chalutza. One does not say with regard to each of the conspiring witnesses, this witness shall be rendered the son of a divorced woman or the son of a chalutza, and instead, rather he receives 40 lashes. The Gemara asks, from where is this matter derived that the court does not punish the witnesses with the punishment they sought to have inflicted and disqualify them from the priesthood? Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, and I believe this is the first rabbi that shows up in this tractate. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says that Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says it is derived from a verse, as the verse states, and you shall do to him as he conspired, Deuteronomy 19:19, from which the Gemara infers it is done to him, but not to his offspring, rendering the witness a halal would disqualify his offspring as well. The Gemara challenges, let the court invalidate the witnesses and not invalidate his offspring. The Gemara explains, that too would not accord with the directive in the case, as based on the verse, we require that the punishment be as he conspired to do, Deuteronomy 19:19. And that is not the case here, as the witness conspired to disqualify the subject of his testimony and his offspring. So Barpada says that this alternative form of punishment is derived through an a fortiori, or inference, if one who actually disqualifies another from the priesthood, a priest who fathers a son with a divorcee disqualifies their son from the priesthood. So is not himself disqualified from the priesthood. So too with regard to this witness who came to disqualify another from the priesthood but was unsuccessful and did not disqualify him because he was rendered a conspiring witness. Isn't it logical that he should not be disqualified? Ravina objects to this reasoning. If so, that the failure of the conspiring witnesses to achieve their objective is the consideration at the basis of the a fortiori inference, you have thereby rendered the halacha of conspiring witnesses obsolete, as one could claim. If one who stones another, that is, who testifies that another is liable to be executed via the death penalty of stoning, and was rendered a conspiring witness after that person was executed, is not stoned. So that the one who stones another is not stoned. As the halacha is that the conspiring witnesses receive the punishment that they conspired to have inflicted and not the punishment that they actually had inflicted, then with regard to conspiring witnesses who came to stone another and was unsuccessful and did not stone him, as he was rendered a conspiring witness before that person was executed, isn't it logical that he should not be stoned? The Gemara concludes, rather, it is clear, as we learned initially, quote, and you shall do to him as he conspired. This should be done to him, but not to his offspring. The Mishnah teaches that in a case where two witnesses came before the court and said, we testify with regard to so-and-so that he is liable to be punished with exile. One does not say that these witnesses shall be exiled in his stead, rather they receive 40 lashes. The Gemara asks, from where is this matter derived? Reish Lakish says, it is derived from a verse, as the verse states with regard to an unwitting killer, quote, and he shall flee to one of the cities, Deuteronomy 19:5. And the Gemara infers, he shall flee, but conspiring witnesses shall not. So, and that's one of the cities of refuge. Rabbi Yochanan says it is derived through an a fortiori inference. Kal v'chomer, if the killer who performed an action that had he done so intentionally, he would not be exiled even if he were not sentenced to death, because there was no forewarning. Then in a case of the conspiring witnesses who did not perform, then in a case of the conspiring witnesses who did not perform an action as their conspiracy was exposed and their testimony rejected, even if they testified intentionally, isn't it logical that they should not be exiled? The Gemara challenges, but that distinction provides support to the contrary. Could this not be derived through logical inference? With regard to one who performed an action that has killed a person, if he did so intentionally, let him not be exiled so that he will not have atonement for his action. He will instead receive harsh punishment at the hand of heaven. With regard to the conspiring witnesses who did not perform an action, even if they testified intentionally, let them also be exiled so that they will have atonement for their misdeed. The Gemara concludes, rather, it is clear in accordance with the explanation of Reish Lakish, quote, and he shall flee to one of the cities, he, but not conspiring witnesses. Ula says, from where is an allusion in the Torah to conspiring witnesses derived? The Gemara asked, is an allusion to conspiring witnesses required? But isn't it written explicitly, and you shall do to him as he conspired, Deuteronomy 19:19? Rather, Ula's question is, from where is an allusion in the Torah to the halacha that conspiring witnesses are flogged, in certain cases derived? It is derived from that which is written, quote, if there is a quarrel between people and they come to judgment, the judges judge them, and they vindicated the righteous and condemn the wicked, and it shall be if the wicked is deserving of lashes, Deuteronomy 25, verses 1 and 2. Ostensibly, this verse is difficult. It is due to the fact that they vindicated the righteous and they condemned the wicked, and it shall be if the wicked is deserving of lashes. In most disputes, the fact that one party is vindicated does not necessarily lead to lashes for the other party. Rather, the verse is addressing the case of witnesses who, through their testimony, condemned the righteous, and the other witnesses came and vindicated the original righteous person and rendered their first set of witnesses wicked conspiring witnesses. In that case, the verse states, and it shall be if the wicked is deserving of lashes, indicating that lashes are an appropriate punishment for conspiring witnesses. The Gemara asks, and why not derive the halacha, the conspiring witnesses are liable to receive lashes from the prohibition, quote, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, Exodus 20:13. The Gemara answers, one is not flogged for violating that prohibition, due to the fact that it is a prohibition that does not involve an action, as one violates it through speech, not action, and the principle is, for every prohibition that does not involve an action, one is not flogged for its violation. Therefore, it was necessary to derive the halacha from the verse, quote, and they vindicated the righteous. The sages taught in the Braita, 4 matters were stated with regard to conspiring witnesses. There are 4 cases in which their punishment derives or deviates from the norm. They are not rendered the son of a divorced woman or the son of a chalutza. They are not exiled to a city of refuge. They do not pay the ransom. If they testified that the forewarned ox of someone killed another, and they are not sold as a Hebrew slave, in a case where they testified that one stole property, and he would be sold into slavery if he lacked the means to repay the owner. The sages said in the name of Rabbi Akiva, they also do not pay based on their own admission. If they were rendered conspiring witnesses in one court, and before that court managed to collect the payment that they owed, they appeared in a different court and admitted that they had been rendered conspiring witnesses, they are exempt from payment. The Gemara elaborates, they are not rendered the son of a divorced woman or the son of a chalutza, as we stated and explained earlier. They are not exiled to a city of refuge, as we stated and explained earlier, and they do not pay the ransom, as the sages hold that the ransom paid by one whose ox killed another is atonement for him, as he is liable for the actions of his animal, and it is not payment of damages. And these conspiring witnesses are not subject to a need for atonement, as their ox did not kill anyone. The Gemara asks, who is the Tana who taught that the ransom is atonement? Rav Chisda says, it is Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka, as it is taught in the Braita with regard to the verse concerning the case where the ox of one person gored another. If ransom is imposed upon him, he shall give the redemption of his soul. Exodus 21:30. The term his soul means the value of the victim. That is, the owner of the ox must pay the heirs of the deceased his value as it would be assessed were he sold it as a slave in the market. Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka, says, the term his soul means the value of the one liable for the damage. What is it not that they disagree with regard to this principle? That one sage, the rabbis, holds that the ransom is monetary restitution for the damage that his ox caused the victim. And one sage, that is Rabbi Yishmael, holds that the ransom is atonement, as he thereby redeems his own soul from death at the hand of heaven. Rav Papa says, no, perhaps everyone agrees that the ransom is atonement, and here it is with regard to this matter that they disagree. One sage, that is the rabbis, meaning the majority, holds that we assess the payment in terms of the value of the victim, and one sage, Rabbi Yishmael, holds that we assess the payment in terms of the value of the one liable for the damage. Okay, the Gemara asks, what is the reason for the opinion of the rabbis, or the majority, who abandon the straightforward meaning of the verse? The rabbis derive it in the following manner. Imposition is stated below with regard to one whose ox killed another. If ransom is imposed upon him, that's a quote. If ransom is imposed upon him, Exodus 21:30. An imposition is stated above in the case of one who struck a pregnant woman, causing her to miscarry. So, quote, he shall be punished as the husband of the woman imposes upon him. Exodus 21:22. Just as there, with regard to the miscarriage, it is in terms of the value of the victim, the fetus, that we assess the payment. Here too, in the case of the ransom, it is in terms of the value of the victim that we assess the payment. And Rabbi Yishmael, son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka, says, and he shall give the redemption of his soul. That's written, indicating that the sum is based on the value of the one seeking atonement. And the rabbis explain, meaning the majority, yes, the phrase redemption of his soul is written in the payment functions to redeem his soul. Nevertheless, when we assess the sum of the redemption payment, it is in terms of the value of the victim that we assess the payment. The Braita teaches conspiring witnesses are not sold as a Hebrew slave in a case where they are testified that one stole property. Rav Hamnuna thought to say this statement applies only in a case where the falsely accused has means of his own to repay the sum of the alleged theft, as since had the testimony been true, he would not have been sold for his transgression. The witnesses too are not sold when they are rendered conspiring witnesses. But in a case where the falsely accused does not have means of his own and would have been sold into slavery had their testimony been accepted, even if the witnesses have means of their own, they are sold as they sought to have slavery inflicted upon him. So Rava said to them, let the witnesses say to the person against whom they testified, if you had money, would you have been sold? We too will not be sold. Since they have the means, they can pay the sum that they owe and not be sold as slaves. Rather, the Gemara proposes an alternative formulation of the statement of Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna thought to say, this statement applies only in a case where either he, the falsely accused, or they, the witnesses, have the means to pay the sum. But in a case where neither he nor they have the means, the witnesses are sold. In that case, had their testimony stood, the alleged thief would have been sold into slavery, and they too lack the means to pay the sum that they are liable to pay as conspiring witnesses. Therefore, they are sold. Rava said to him, this is not so, as the merciful one states, and he shall be sold for his theft, Exodus 21:30, from which it is inferred for his theft, but not for his conspiring testimony. It is taught in Braita, the sages said in the name of Rabbi Akiva, they also do not pay based on their own admission. The Gemara explains, what is the reason for the opinion of Rabbi Akiva? He holds that money paid by a convicted conspiring witness is a fine or kanasa. And the principle is one does not pay a fine based on his own admission. One pays a fine only on the basis of testimony. Rabbah says, know that it is a fine, as these witnesses do not perform an action caused by no actual damage, and yet they are executed or paid depending on the nature of their testimony, indicating that it is a fine rather than monetary restitution. Rav Nachman says, know that it is a fine rather than monetary restitution for damages, as the money they sought to compel him to pay ultimately remains in the possession of the owner against whom they testified, and yet they pay him. Okay, so that is the end of Daf 2. So thanks for listening. I'm going to have another playlist where we're going to go through the Tosefta, Makkot and the Tosefta. So a lot of times it talks about is taught in the Braita. So many times that additional material is found in the Tosefta. The Tosefta, it means supplement or, additional material or appendix or however you want to translate that. It's like some sort of additional material to the Mishnah. So like I say, anytime you hear where it says it is taught in the Braita, a lot of times it's referring to the Tosefta, something that's in there. So anyway, this is a very short tractate. We should be, let me see how many doctrine we have. I think it's 22. Yeah, let's see, 21. No, I think it's 24. It's not 21. Yeah. Yeah, so if it ends at 24, we don't do one, so it's actually 23. So within a month, we'll have another CM. But anyway, so thanks for watching.